While everybody's been distracted with Michael Saylor, we keep getting more confirmation that the Bitcoin treasury death spiral is unwinding. Today, we saw the second largest Bitcoin treasury company in the UK officially capitulating, selling all their Bitcoin and closing the doors on their company. But you can't view this in a vacuum. Of course, yesterday we talked about Jack Mallers leaving the second largest Bitcoin treasury company in the world. And last week we didn't cover it, but Adam Back's Bitcoin treasury company also stalled. So is this the capitulation signal we've been waiting for? We've been saying this on the show. I don't even know for how long at this point, but the capitulation that everyone is expecting in the Bitcoin price is most likely going to come from the Bitcoin treasury space. So we might be seeing the bottom signal. This might officially be the bottom, guys. It might. I think this might be it. All right. Anyways, what am I talking about? What am I going into here? So yesterday we saw this. It's coming from Bitcoin treasuries on Twitter, and it goes, just in, shareholders of Mark Moss-backed British Bitcoin treasury company Satsuma Technology, $SATS ticker, have voted to sell all of its remaining 668 Bitcoin, return capital to shareholders, and shut down the company. So let's dive in here a little bit. Here's Bitcoin Mag. Satsuma shareholders approve Bitcoin liquidation and London delisting. So, look, for all of us that stayed humble and stacked sats, I don't necessarily think this is a time for us to gloat about us being right. But for everyone else that did get caught up in the Bitcoin treasury hype, it might be time to reevaluate your investing thesis here. Look, I'm not saying like fire sale your stocks yet, but if I was holding Bitcoin treasuries, I would probably be a little worried right now. I mean, but like, how much more worried can you be when most of them are down like 80% plus? I don't mean to laugh at your pain here, but man, it's been brutal. Anyways, let's look at the Bitcoin treasuries leaderboard, I guess you'd call. And you can see that Satsuma is here at 57 on the Bitcoin treasury leaderboard. But since there's not that many UK companies, this, as of now, or rather, was the second largest Bitcoin treasury company in the UK. So let's look at their holdings here. And this is where you can kind of see the story. They did, at their all-time high, hold almost 1,200 Bitcoin. Now, of course, 668 Bitcoin, and that's all gone. So that's going to hit the market, or, you know, they just voted that it's going to be sold. The company's going to delist. Shareholders are going to get their capital back. It's not looking very good for the Bitcoin treasury hype cycle. This is something that we've been talking about for a while, and now we are seeing it. And I think this brings up the broader kind of conversation. One, of course, is this the final capitulation signal that we were expecting for the bottom of a bear market? This is usually what happens in a bear market. When you get to the bottom of a bear market, it's like we always say, you know, the world is healing. And those that weren't smart allocating their capital, they end up leaving the market. And we're seeing this not only, again, not in a vacuum, we're seeing this happen everywhere. Obviously, you could make the case that maybe Saylor started this. Well, in general, I guess, you know, being maybe a little loose with your definitions by creating the Bitcoin treasury company, the hype that followed. If you wanted to be cynical, you could put the blame on Saylor. But Saylor, you know, strategy's doing, I think, will be okay. I think Saylor figured out what they're going to do with strategy. Yes, they're being tested right now. But this did also come on the tail of Saylor selling some Bitcoin. And everyone obviously has an opinion on this. It's like he was, you know, aping in at the top of Bitcoin and stacking dollars at the Bitcoin bear market. You're kind of supposed to do the opposite here. And now we're seeing, hey, look, the quote pure Bitcoin play, it might not work out as everyone expected it was. I mean, there was a very big hype on this idea that all you had to do to turn around a zombie company, because like the broader conversation is really there, like the entire economy, the entire stock market, whether it's in the US or everywhere else, for the most part, are kind of filled with a bunch of zombie companies. If you look at the S&P 500, it's probably like 495 zombie companies. Like they're there. Their names, but are they really doing anything? Not really. They are pretty much only going up because they are expanding the money supply. That's one of the things that I keep saying and I keep trying to keep in mind is we are seeing the stock market continue to go up. And yes, most people would look at that and be like, hey, look, I made more dollars on these stocks. Like, look at my gains. I'm doing so well, 15, 20% or whatever it's at right now. But they're not viewing it in the context that us Bitcoiners view it, which is like, it's not that this stock is this company is more productive, hence the stock is going higher. What is going on is that there's more liquidity in the system. There's more inflation in the system. And so stocks and hard assets, whether that's real estate, whether that's Bitcoin, whether that's gold, whether that's collector's items like art, etc., jewelry, old cars, whatever your store of value of choice is, what is going on is that there's more dollars in the system chasing these assets. And that is the correct context, or rather the correct lens to view all of this stuff. And so the idea of just taking a zombie company, adding Bitcoin to the balance sheet, yes, maybe you could get caught up in the hype cycle like we saw in 2025, but is there a long-term viable business plan behind that? And that is the broader conversation. And that's what I was talking about yesterday. And there was a clip coming out today. I saw it was on Lauren Shin's podcast. I forget what the name of the podcast is, but she was talking to Lynn Alden, which is another Bitcoin treasury company that just came on the block that we haven't talked about. And you can see when she's talking about it that she is Orange Juice is the name of the Bitcoin treasury company, is doing the exact play that I basically laid out for you yesterday, but it is considered a Bitcoin treasury company. It is figuring out how to get cash flow, and then the parent company holds Bitcoin on the balance sheet. And that gives them a lot more flexibility to basically not sell Bitcoin at the bottom of the bear market, or if they want to sell Bitcoin, they can, but they have cash flow coming in. This is the new iteration of the Bitcoin treasury company, that you need to have cash flow. You got to have cash coming in, or else why are people going to invest in your company if all you're doing is just buying Bitcoin? How are you going to convince someone to give up their hard-earned cash to buy your ticker so that you can just buy Bitcoin? Why not just cut out the middleman? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's like the first sentence of the white paper, or in the first paragraph. Cut out the middleman, just buy Bitcoin directly, hold it into your self-custody and your hardware wallet. Like, you don't need to try to find gains somewhere else and giving up the keys of your Bitcoin. Remember, it's not your keys, it's not your Bitcoin, not your cheese, or not your keys, it's not your cheese, as we always like to say. We're seeing this is happening in real time. There is a real pivot here in terms of what is the point of these treasury companies. Yes, I think Saylor will probably figure it out, because there is, I believe, a very real need for the digital credit idea. It's obviously new. It is still being tested. It is still growing in its infancy. It's still not a well flushed out idea as we've been watching. They're still learning on the job. But this idea that we saw in 2025 of, hey, I will just buy Bitcoin, you give me money, we'll give you a 1-2 plus MNAV. It's like a leverage Bitcoin play. You're going to make gains. You can roll over those profits and put it into Bitcoin. That seems to have lost its luster. And it really reminds me of, I don't know if you guys were all here during 2017 or the ICO craze of, the downfall towards the end of 2017 and into 2020 or 2018. But it really is the Bitcoin treasury hype that we saw is really reminding me of one particular story where I think it was the Long Island iced tea company. Everyone was getting into the blockchain space, quote, blockchain space. And all they were doing was just like adding blockchain to their company ticker or their company name. And so the Long Island iced tea company turned into like the Long Island iced tea blockchain company. I forget what the name was. And the ticker went absolutely, it went nuclear. It started to rip. And then later on, it's like they didn't even do anything, and they probably, silently took it away. Guys, it is starting to feel like the ICO craze finally coming to an end. I don't know how we would frame this. You know, we had ICO, initial coin offerings. It was the ICO mania. Maybe it's just a Bitcoin treasury mania that we found ourselves in 2025, and it is finally unwinding, which again, as I mean, I don't mean to be cynical here because I like Mark Moss. I think Mark Moss is one of the best content creators. His channel is great. I've learned a lot from Mark Moss. I think I respect him as a content creator. And so it is very unfortunate that it's his company. They're winding it up. But I guess he's doing it in a way where like it's an honorable way. He's like, hey, look, I made a mistake, but I'm going to return capital to our shareholders. So at least it's not like a complete rug pull like a shitcoiner would do. So shouts out to Mark Moss. I'm a huge fan of Mark Moss, but we're starting to see the Bitcoin treasury space. I don't want to say it's in a dire position right now because obviously there will be winners in the Bitcoin treasury space. And I think Strategy was probably going to be one. Metaplanet seems to be doing pretty good. Strive seems to also be following in the Strategy wake. 21 Capital is probably going to figure this out because they're focused on cash flow positive business. I'm sure Lynn Alden will be able to figure it out because she's also focusing on cash positive businesses with the new Orange Juice venture. And they also just raised like $40 million seed round. So, you know, they got a little bit of padding there. But we're seeing that the Bitcoin treasury hype is finally coming to an end. And I think that is very good for all of us here as Bitcoiners, as more pure play, quote, Bitcoiners here that we just buy Bitcoin, we just stack Bitcoin. It does look like the whole idea, you know, once the tide goes out, you get to see who's actually wearing pants or not. And this is what we're seeing at the very bottom of the bear market. We're seeing all the Bitcoin treasury companies capitulate, which is a signal that we've been talking about here for a while. You know, Nico, if Nico was here, he would do, I'm so vindicated. Guys, I've been telling you this. It's like, guys, my guy. We knew this was going to happen, all right? It's like, you know, and I love Nico. This is not me bad-mouthing Nico because he's not on the show. This is me trolling my best friend, okay? It's like, guys, my dude. It's not much of a prediction when it's like the writing's on the wall, okay? Just guys, he's not here, so hey, we troll a little bit. We do a little trolling, okay? But I think this is, in the context of everything going on, I think a sign of the times. And personally, as I've been saying, I'm pretty convinced that this 60K or 57 to 60K, you know, you guys could actually me bro on that one. It really does feel like this is the bottom signal. I think we're going to look back on these particular stories in about a month or two and be like, yeah, it was obvious in hindsight. Everything is always obvious in 2020 hindsight. Like, yeah, that was the absolute bottom. I'm glad that I, you know, took Opti's advice and I wasn't waiting for 40K. I'm like more than convinced than ever that we're never going to see 40K ever again. I'm really more convinced that we probably might not even see like the low 50s again. I mean, at least in this cycle, okay? And I did see Intra Belden in the chat. He's like, okay, you know, we went up to like 65K. When's the next dip? I mean, today might be that dip. I'm still blinded by my view of the wick off accumulation and the pump to 65, a little bit of a pullback. If we do start to climb, I'm eyeing like 74-ish K view again, then one more pullback, and then next level, I'm eyeing like 85. If that plays out, it's on to the races, boys and girls. We can be smart again. We took our L's, we took our lumps. Everyone called us an idiot. You know, even we at some point maybe doubted ourselves or maybe just got tired. I'll be nice about it. Maybe we just got tired. We're just like, man, when is this going to be fun? I'm bored. But I'm getting bullish. My boy Luke's getting bullish. The most bull-tarded person I know, Luke Mikic, is finally getting bullish again. We're trying not to get too bullish right now. But man, does this not feel just like a classic bottom indicator? A classic, and I don't want to say blow up per se, because it's not really a blow up, but it is a fire sale here. So, I mean, 668 Bitcoin, it's not really that much in the context of a sell to hit the market. But again, 1,000 Bitcoin, like if you had 1,000 Bitcoin in your personal wallet and you had to fire sale that, like, that would be a capitulation. That would hurt. So look, Bitcoin treasury space is in a unique position right now. It is being tested. The idea of a Bitcoin treasury company is being tested as we speak. There will be winners. I think the idea of every company in the world will be a Bitcoin treasury company, a la in the strategy kind of, copycat model. I don't think that's going to happen. As I've been saying the last couple of weeks, I think the Bitcoin treasury model is simply going to be you run a good business, you have cash flow coming in, hence what 21 Capital has been saying, hence what Lynn Alden's Orange Juice just came out and said, or hence what SpaceX basically did and Tesla is doing. Now, whether they're actually profitable is probably a different conversation, but they're making cool stuff. The business model is simply, if you run a business, you're an entrepreneur, you provide value, you make sure cash is coming in, you make sure your expenses don't exceed your cash coming in, and you store your profits in Bitcoin. It's really not that difficult. I think part of this process was, and actually I was mentioning it yesterday in the context with Brian Harrington, and in the beginning of the show, it's like, I think as we go through this whole Bitcoin story, because Bitcoin is so different, because Bitcoin is so unique, because we've never seen anything like Bitcoin before, there is a lot of experimentation that goes through this process, a lot of iteration that happens till we get to, quote, the correct answer. And sometimes, again, maybe it's just because I have a 42 IQ. We just got to keep it super simple. Like, if it's good enough for me, it's good enough for my business. I don't need to overcomplicate things. Yes, I think there is an aspect of what Saylor is doing with strategy, hence what my boy Nolan has been saying, that the only way to get out of financial engineering is through financial engineering, but on Bitcoin. And on that note, I am going to have Nolan on Monday, I believe it is, next Monday. So I'm super excited for that show. That's probably going to be a great show. I'm going to ask him these questions. We're going to elaborate a lot of this on next Monday's show, I believe is the date when he's coming in. So I'll have him explain all of this to you guys. But not every one of us has to become a financial engineering Bitcoin treasury to succeed. And not every small and medium-sized company will have to go into financial engineering to succeed on a, quote, Bitcoin treasury model. It doesn't need to be this complicated. Do I think strategy is over their skis? Not at all. I think strategy will probably get back up to all-time highs of whatever, 500 plus per MSTR. But as we said in the past, there will be a couple of big Bitcoin treasury companies, and all of the smaller ones, they will most likely pack it up. This is not like a altcoin trading idea here where, you go for the small cap, bro. Like, go for the small cap, because if it pumps, you're going to get like a 10x bagger. I think those days are over. I think the market learned its lesson. And honestly, on that note, I think the market learning its lesson as quickly as it did is healthy for the entire ecosystem, for the entire Bitcoin, I don't want to say community, but for the entire Bitcoin industry. The fact that we basically have speed run this process, it's just the next time we get into another, somewhat of a bear market, whether that's 3 years, who knows, super cycle, 10 years, whatever your view is of this, we won't be making the same mistakes that we made before. So these are growing pains in Bitcoin. Again, Bitcoin's what? 17 years old. Don't sit here and look me in the eyes with a straight face and tell me you weren't making mistakes at 17 years old. I know I was. Hey, I'm just lucky that I'm a millennial boomer here and I grew up without social media in my life, because, hey, I grew up in the era of Jackass. I was making Jackass videos before it was even, we even had social media, before we had iPhones. So I'm glad that all of that footage is somewhere lost right now, because, man, me at 17 was it was not the smartest or sharpest tool in the shed. But this is where we are. The entire industry is learning, maturing. We're all trying to figure out this whole process. We're all trying to figure out how Bitcoin not only succeeds, but fits in the traditional financial system. And I could I think I'd make the case that that's even what we're seeing with the whole BIP 110 argument here. You know, the idea of sound money, of arbitrary data, is we are all growing up and we're all trying to figure out how to best view Bitcoin. And again, I always go back to my simple syllogisms, if that's the right word I'm looking for, my, you know, simple allegories. And I'm always thinking of the five blind men touching the elephant. Everyone touches the elephant from a different angle, a different body part, pause, and they all think it's something else. We all bring a certain baggage into Bitcoin. We all bring a certain perspective into Bitcoin, and we all see different things. And I think all of us combined do want to see Bitcoin succeed, but the arguments come out through the idea of how does it succeed the best? And further, the timeline of this happening. A lot of people maybe want to see this succeed in 2 to 3 years. A lot of people are like, look, it's going to happen in 10 to 20 years. We're all, you know, on different timelines. Some of us are a lot younger. We're a lot more impatient. Some of us are a lot wiser. And we're like, look, it's going to play out how it's going to play out. There's no need to rush it. And then some of us, you know, I see you guys in the chat. Some of you guys are like, look, I'm 70 years old. I can't wait 20 years, bro. Like, Opti, you got time. I don't have time. I just want to see this pump so that I can live a good life, pass some sats to my kids. So again, we do have to kind of keep that in mind when we talk about Bitcoin. Not everyone agrees exactly on how Bitcoin works, about what Bitcoin is. And when you're talking with someone, even though we're all Bitcoiners, quote Bitcoiners, sometimes you assume that everyone views Bitcoin the exact way that you do. And I think this is where a lot of our problems come from. Look, again, I am not a Bitcoin treasury guy. To me, it hasn't really made that much sense why I would give someone my Bitcoin or my money so that they can buy more Bitcoin. Yes, I get it to leverage Bitcoin play, but to me, it just never made sense. And I think the reason is look, I'm not the smartest tool in the shed, but I am risk averse. This is how I've survived this long hey, look, I do dumb things all the time, but I usually do them in the context where like, look, it's dumb, but like, it's not so dumb that I'm going to die from it. So like I can get away with it. To me, the letting up a big play is, am I going to lose my Bitcoin? And that's just something I'm never going to risk. To me, the even small chance of that happening is what stops me from jumping off the ledge. And I just want to continue to kind of give you that same perspective that, look, it's not about going and chasing the easy gains. You should have the risk aversion of, if I do this, will I lose my Bitcoin? And maybe that just comes from my personal Bitcoin journey. Early in my Bitcoin journey, I believe it was like 3 months into my Bitcoin journey, I lost a pretty big amount of Bitcoin. And that fundamentally, like, it was devastating to me. At the time, it wasn't even that much money. Bitcoin was around like 10K, but I lost a significant portion of Bitcoin. And ever since that moment, something just clicked in my head, and it's always, to me, the prevailing thing stopping me from doing anything is like, okay, if I do this, will I lose another chunk of Bitcoin? And even if the slightest doubt comes in my mind that that is a possibility, I just stay away from it. Now I am maturing. I am looking at other things, not really other things, but I am looking at things differently now. And as long as you are able to manage your risks, then you can do some things, but that still should be one of your top considerations. And it looks like a lot of people got caught up in the Bitcoin treasury hype. And now at the bottom of this bear market, people are starting to wake up. And again, kudos to some of these managers here, the people that are looking at the situation and like, look, this just doesn't make sense. Yeah, you know, I got ahead of myself. And now we got to kind of close down the doors and do what we can to repay our shareholders, do what we can to make sure that the people that did trust me, did invest in me, did kind of follow my lead, are made as whole as possible. So, guys, are we seeing it? Is this the signal we've been waiting for? It's not a spectacular explosion, which, again, not saying I want to see my friends blow up here. That's not what I'm saying. But it's not a Mt. Gox FTX blow up. And I think that's where that's how this is going to end. I don't think we're going to see a massive explosion. I don't think we're going to see, a BlockFi blow up, a Celsius against FTX blow up. I don't think that is how this is going to play up. It does seem like a whimper. I really feel like this bear market is just ending on a whimper, and it's going to start going up, and everyone's going to start doubting it. Everyone's going to be in disbelief. We're like, no, we need the explosion. My gut's telling me that's not how this is happening. My gut's just telling me this is it. So what does that mean for you? It's like, if you are on the sidelines waiting for 40K, I'm not trying to make you FOMO back in right now, but all I'm saying is you probably are not going to get that. Now, again, with that in mind, that's just like my general view here. This is what I've been telling my friends. This is, I'm eating my own cooking. This is what I believe. I haven't brought it up on the show yet. I've been kind of teasing it. There are some macro headwinds that I might cover, hopefully at some point this week, if I can confirm some of these rumors. So it's not 100% guaranteed in my mind that we might not see an epic pullback. And by epic, I mean like maybe the 50s, something like that. I don't think we're completely out of the woods yet. If these macro headwinds do play out like we're seeing, I mean, look, if you're following along in the Iran war, like we're back at war. We've been bombing them. Well, the U.S. has been bombing Iran for like the last 11 days. Oil prices are going up. I think I saw WTI crude oil this morning at like 86. Bond yields are spiking right now. S&P 500 was down this morning. NASDAQ was down this morning. Dow Jones was kind of holding on. Gold and silver aren't really doing so hot. Who knows what is fully happening right now? But if we do get a big macro headwind signal, then obviously we will update our view of what's going on right now. But as of now, guys, I don't know. I think we're in cruise control, just like getting, at the bottom of the hill. You're just kind of like coasting at the bottom of the hill. And then we will start to make our climb again. But signal we've been talking about is happening. Bitcoin treasury companies are capitulating. It's happening, guys. It's finally happening. So if you've been watching the show for the last couple of months and you've been looking for the signal to be feeling a lot better about the bear market and feeling a lot better of where we will finally fall, I think this might be it. All right, guys. Anyways, keeping the show going. I saw this interesting clip of RFK Jr. He's saying everything we know, but he's on Glenn Beck saying it. So maybe there's something to, maybe the world is waking up a little bit. And then I am super excited for this show. We have Fernando from Bitcoin Perception, aka Base Layer, on today. And we're going to be talking about the media landscape. I'm going to truly enjoy this one. I've been loving his Twitter. You guys know I've been playing his clips on this show. I've been showing his tweets. This one's going to be a very fun one for me on the tail end of the show. I'm excited for today's conversation. So first break, I'll be right back. Here's the part that nobody says out loud. Buying Bitcoin on an exchange and leaving it there isn't buying Bitcoin. It's buying an IOU. And the last decade has been a masterclass in what happens when those exchanges don't deliver on their promises.
Bitcoin Well is a self-custody Bitcoin platform. That means that when you buy Bitcoin, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet. You actually own it from the very first transaction. They're available both in the United States and Canada. Pricing is transparent, straightforward, and no nonsense. And if you're buying a larger amount of Bitcoin, Bitcoin Well Infinite gives you concierge-level support through a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, premium help for when it actually matters.
You can also stack a little extra through the referral and wishing well rewards. A nice bonus on top of the owning your own Bitcoin thing. So go to bitcoinwell.com/simply and sign up for the Bitcoin Well portal today and buy Bitcoin you actually own. Paper burns. paper floods, paper fades. If your seed phrase is written on paper, it's not really backed up. It's waiting to disappear. Stamp Seed's DIY kit lets you hammer your seed words directly into commercial grade titanium. Fireproof, crush-proof, waterproof, and permanent. Once your words are in the metal, they aren't going anywhere. Use code SIMPLY at stampseed.com for 15% off anything in the store. That's stampseed.com, code SIMPLY. All right, guys, we are back, and the current Bitcoin price is 66,190. Man, it feels good. Dude, we're literally what's that one meme of the like fat guy and he's in the race and he's got the champagne bottle and he's celebrating like he won first place and he's in third place. We're the classic, like, okay, Bitcoin pumped what? Like I've been seeing the corporate press talk about it, like Bitcoin pumped 10K, $10,000 in 3 weeks. And we're just like, man, we're so back. Like, it feels so good. We're so back. And then you zoom out and we're 47.5% off all-time high, 47.5 discount off all-time high. Dude, it feels so good to be winning again. All right, sorry, guys. I forget. I forget. I got to be serious. You guys don't like when I'm laughing. The market cap is $1.33 trillion, and the block height is 959,156. Okay, so I guess RFK Jr. was just on Glenn Beck, and personally, yo, RFK, where you been at, bro? Yeah, you're a Bitcoiner. Yeah, you're what? Head of the Department of Health. Okay, you changed the food pyramid, like, cool. I thought we were banning red dye, red 40. Like, I thought we were getting Whole Foods back in the grocery store. We're getting all the dyes and chemicals out. It's like, bro, where you been at? Like, what are you doing? Like, what is happening here, bro? Like, look, I like the stuff you say, but like, it really feels like this administration is simply an administration that is like, it's run by press release here. It's like all we're getting is very cool press releases. That's just like red meat for the base. But I'm like, where's the follow through here, dude? Man, like, look, I try to avoid all of the chemicals, but man, what's happening? Okay, like I already eat by the food pyramid. You didn't have to tell me that. Oh, the real food pyramid's inverted. Anyways, I'm ranting. I'm crashing out. But he was on Glenn Beck, and again, he is kind of saying the obvious to us. And maybe to us, it's not surprising, but since he's saying it to Glenn Beck, maybe this is the message that the boomers out there need to get. Not the Bitcoin boomers, but like the normie boomers out there. Maybe this is new to them. I don't know. I mean, we've been saying this forever, so maybe it's cool that they're finally saying what we're saying and like our message is finally getting out there. Obviously, it's not from us, but like, they're all starting to sound like Bitcoin podcasters. So I guess it's like a win. It's a W. We're winning. We're winning the culture war here. But here, before I keep going and ranting, let's watch the clip.
Where do you stand on the WEF, the World Economic Forum?
It is like, we shouldn't be paying any attention. It's a billionaires' boys club as arranging the world to shift wealth upward and to clamp down totalitarian controls on everybody else. And now they got the capacity to do it. They got all these countries running around doing what they tell them to do. It's astonishing to me that, these people go to Davos in their private jets.
Yes.
And they're able to tell these world leaders, how to govern us in ways that eradicate our constitutional and civil rights and constantly shifting wealth. I mean, COVID, we shifted $4 trillion of wealth upward. We closed all the little guys.
Yeah.
And
Home Depot was open, but
and Google, and they're all colluding with each other to censor the people who were like me who were complaining about it.
Look, I'm only laughing because it's like, wait, how long have we been doing this show? 6 years. I guess better late than never, right? I guess it takes about 6 years for everyone to finally get around to everything we've been saying for the longest time. So for us, again, I always bring up this eternal September kind of idea that as more and more people start to wake up, it seems like we go in circles and talk about the same things constantly. And guys, forgive me, but I don't know what's going on with the AC in here. I am freaking dying in here today. Anyways, turn of September idea that as more and more people start to wake up, it seems like we keep going in circles with these ideas. And, you know, we used to joke on this show that there was a short time delay from when things are a conspiracy theory to a fact. And for a little while, I was kind of saying that it seems like that time delay is shortening, where it used to be, you know, if you're a conspiracy theorist, it might take a decade until everyone kind of comes around to your idea. And then slowly but surely it morphed to like 5 years to 2 years, which was around the 2020 era where we were like, okay, it's basically like a 2-year time delay. And then it seemed like things did start to accelerate for a little bit. And it was like, yo, it seems like 6 months now that we say something, 6 months later, everyone else is on the same train. Now it does seem like maybe the bigger conversations, like we're still at, I guess, a 6-year delay from when we first start talking about things, when we first start looking crazy to when everyone else starts to kind of come around to these ideas. If you listen to this, it's like, yeah, duh. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Like, tell me something I don't know, bro. But I guess maybe it's just because of the audience he's speaking to that it is maybe hitting a little harder. Like to us, again, it's like, we already know this, bro. Like we don't like the weave. None of my homies like the weave. Like, what are we talking about here? This is obvious. This is like 101 stuff. But I guess for Glenn Beck, this is like a huge revelation. You know, actually, this might be a good segue here. I'm going to go on a little rant here, and I hope Fernando pops in sooner than later. You know what's an interesting trend? And this is more of like an observation of media personalities and the corporate press in general, which again is going to be, I think, a good segue into what we're going to talk about towards the tail end of the show. But you know what's super interesting to me? It has nothing to do with Bitcoin per se, but I find it extremely interesting that we have media personalities like Glenn Beck or like Tucker Carlson, or like, who else can I name right now that comes to mind? Yeah, I'm going to use them as an example because I was going to say Alex Jones, but Uncle Alex is kind of, look, he's a little crazy, but he's been right for like 2 decades. But anyways, as my example, Glenn Beck and Tucker Carlson. You know what's interesting? These guys have been in media for like 30 years. You could say it's interesting, or you can say maybe there's a little more nefariousness happening behind the scenes of them trying to, move the conversation where they want to, or as Whitney Webb and my boy Mark Goodwin always say, have limited hangouts where they seemingly touch on these conversations, but they only go so far. I find it very suspicious and interesting that these personalities, these media personalities that have been on Fox News and CNN and all of the big corporations, and they've been doing this media stuff for 30 plus years. And only now in the last year or so do they start touching on all of the things that us independent content creators have been talking about. They just had this grand awakening, this enlightenment moment where, oh my God, it is just becoming obvious to me all of these things that these crazy kids have been saying is actually right. And it's like, bro, who are you fooling? Like, oh, or like Sean Hannity, that's another one. I'm glad I named him. It's like, who are you trying to fool here? It's really like the hey kids, like I like what you like now. Like they really are trying to, I don't want to say co-opt the movement, but for lack of better terms, it fits perfectly. You know, if the shoe fits here, they're like, hey, look, I'm cool too. I'm talking about the same stuff that you're talking about. I'm hip to it, bro. You know, I'm hip to it, young whippersnapper. It's like, dude, you've been doing this for 30 years. And only now you're waking up to it. I haven't even been alive for as long as you've been doing. Well, I have been, but like you've been doing this for as long as I've been alive. And only now when it's extremely popular are you bringing these topics up. This is like the stuff we would get canceled for. This is the stuff we still have to tiptoe because we do not have the quote authority, you know, status symbol behind us that makes it seem legitimate. I'm still just an idiot on YouTube that talks about crazy stuff. I'm still just some random kid that talks about Bitcoin on YouTube. And if I say it, it's like, yeah, the cool story. You know, like I get this with my family all the time too. I'm going on maybe a tangent you guys don't care about right now, but like I'm rolling with it. It's like I get this all the time with my family, where I always joke that at this point, like my family should believe everything I tell them, just because I say it. Like I've been right about everything. Well, more right about everything than wrong since about like 2018. And I say stuff and they still roll their eyes and look at me like, yo, you're crazy. And I'm like, do I not have a pretty strong track record of predicting where things are going? They're like, yeah. Like, you know, I still think of you as the snot-nosed kid that is running around barefoot all night, you know, like ramming your head through the door because you're just like bam, bam, and pebbles. And now, why am I going to listen to you? I'm like, well, you know, I've been right about Bitcoin. I was right about 2020. Like I've been right about the World Economic Forum. I've been right about a lot of things. I've been right about the propaganda war against us, the psyops that are happening. And they still look at me like, yeah, cool story, bro. Anyways, you know, what's for dinner? Like I'll go on rants at the dinner table. I don't do this anymore. But I used to go on like crazy rants at the dinner table. Like, you know, my family would say something, I would just unleash, right? And they would just all look at me and be like, dude, I'm just trying to eat my steak. And you know, I feel for them. But it is interesting that when someone with the stature of a Glenn Beck or Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity tries to get involved in the conversation, it is like this huge revelation. And it's like, okay, but like you've been in those circles for 30 plus years. Either you are a complete idiot, you're like extremely naive, or, you know, you just kind of are a man of your times and you just drank the Kool-Aid here. But now they're having their revelations. Now that everyone's talking about it, now that it's popular, now that it's cool to be, you know, somewhat edgy, this is the stuff that everyone's talking about. And you're just like, man, who are you fooling? You're not fooling anyone. Well, actually, let me take that back. You're not fooling us, bro. You might, what's the Bob Marley quote? You know, you might fool some of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all the people all of the time. Or was that, that's like a paraphrase of the Abraham Lincoln quote, but I was thinking of the Bob Marley song. Is where we are. And there is like a you know, actual signal through that. And it's not just me venting here. But as we're seeing, there is a fundamental divide from what comes from the legacy media and what comes on the independent content creator side. And I'm not saying that you should believe everything that content creators say and you should, you know, hook, line, and sinker agree with everything that I say or any of your favorite content creators. I still believe you should, you know, verify, don't just trust. Like if someone says something that's interesting, definitely look into it, use some critical thinking, make sure that, hey, I'm not just agreeing with something because it's my favorite influencer and I just like the guy. But you should be a bit suspicious when you see these legacy media personalities come out and start saying stuff that you've been saying for a long time. To me, that gets my spidey senses tingling, and I'm like, okay, well, one, I do generally agree with what they're saying. Like what RFK was saying, it's like, yeah, that's obvious. Like, why does anyone even listen to the World Economic Forum at this point? Like, it's literally a caricature of like Austin Power movies for us. You know, it's like Dr. Evil level stuff. Like Klaus Schwab is basically Dr. Evil here. It's just like, it's a joke to us. But to other people, there still seems to be some semblance of authority coming from these institutions. And I'm not necessarily saying let's tear down all the institutions. Like I'm not a full-blown anarchist by any means, but it is interesting that they are saying this, and that should make you a bit suspicious. But my boy Fernando is here. So without further delay, last break, and I think you guys are going to really enjoy this conversation. I know I am. He has been tweeting some bangers lately. It might seem a bit contrarian to your Bitcoin cult beliefs, but I think this is very healthy. And again, I hope you watched yesterday's show. There's a little bit of pushback here, but I think it does foster the healthy conversation we need. So I will be right back. I'm super excited for this conversation. Here we go.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledin. Here's something most Bitcoin holders never figure out until it's too late. You're sitting on wealth you can't touch without selling. Ledin fixes that. Bitcoin-backed loans. You keep your stack, you get cash. And they just introduced their lowest rates ever. No complexity, no fine print. The larger the loan, the lower the rate. These new rates apply to all new loans, refinances, and renewals. You'll see all the rates up front before you apply. The new, lower rates come with Ledin's gold standard protection. Your Bitcoin remains custodied and is never lent out for interest. Perfect 8-year track record of keeping clients' assets safe. Auto top-ups, LTV alerts, and partial repayments to keep you in control. Repay whenever you want with zero penalties or monthly payments. Ledin's perfect $10 billion track record through every market cycle in the last 8 years speaks for itself. Don't choose between a great rate and the safety of your Bitcoin. Get both at Ledin. If you ever thought, what happens to my Bitcoin if something happens to me? Or what happens if I lose my phone? You're not alone. For a lot of people, the biggest barrier to self-custody isn't buying Bitcoin. It's the fear of making a mistake. And that's why I like Bitkey, and I recommend it to my friends and family. Bitkey is a Bitcoin wallet built for real life, not just for day one, but for everything that happens in between. Lost devices, upgrades, accidents, and long-term ownership. There's no seed phrase to write down and worry about losing, and no single point of failure that can lock you out of your Bitcoin forever. What really stands out about Bitkey is the peace of mind. Recovery is built in, inheritance is built in. It's a complete self-custody system built by the team behind Square and Cash App, designed to make holding your own Bitcoin simpler and safer. Take self-custody of your Bitcoin today using Bitkey. Go to bitkey.world and use promo code SIMPLY for 10% off your new Bitkey. That's bitkey.world, promo code SIMPLY. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy across 3 continents, HIVE runs dual engines, Bitcoin mining and AI compute. Their AI platform is ranked #1 in the world for network performance, and it's doing something bigger than compute. It's accelerating human discovery, the science, the breakthroughs, pushing humanity further and faster. Listed on the NASDAQ with the ticker HIVE. Catch the latest buzz at HIVE Digital Tech on X or HIVEdigitaltech.com.
You secured your Bitcoin, but did you secure your devices too? They're still broadcasting your location and digital footprint. GPS, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, cell, 5G, EMF, all of it is leaking. Escape Zone fixes that. Their Faraday bags block every signal your device emits, so you decide when you're detectable, not the grid. Built for Bitcoiners who know sovereignty isn't just your wallet. It's your phone, your hardware wallet, your keys, and your entire digital life. Go to escapezone.com/simply and use code SIMPLY for 10% off. That's escapezone.com/simply, code SIMPLY. All right, Fernando. Good to have
Matt?
you, man. Good to have
see
you.
Looking
Yeah,
prosperous
man.
and
All right.
healthy.
Oh, hey, we're thriving. It might be a bear market, but I like to say that we're not just surviving, we're thriving. We're trying to thrive. But anyways, Fernando, man, founder at the Bitcoin Perception. I'm glad to see it launch. We will talk about that on the tail end, but I've been bringing up your content on this show for a while, and I've been basically pushing everyone to your Twitter account recently because I've been seeing what you've been posting, and I love the stuff that you've been posting lately. Obviously, where we are in like a media landscape, and also your previous history from going from the music industry and when Napster came around and all the parallels here. So I'm going to let you take this, and then I'll just, take this where you want to start, and then I will kind of just add into this. So do you want to hit just the general divide from like the legacy media into where we are, or like where do you want to start? It's up to you, man, because I think people are going to get a lot of value just from anything that you say right now. And then, of course, we will plug what you created and how this will help the audience.
Well, thank you so much, man. I think on a high level, we can take it high level, and then we can break it down to whatever we want to, whatever thread we want to pull. But I think the entire media landscape, the way that humanity is consuming information online, is absolutely retard maxing at the moment. And it is fragmented. It's very chaotic. And I think we have now come to the realization, whether directly or indirectly, like there's no turning back now. There's no single movement that will bring, let's say, Bitcoin adoption to the masses, in one big swoop. We're all fragmented. We're all spread across a bunch of different pockets of the internet, just fighting for relevancy. And this is equally true for like legacy outlets, but also individual influencers, to any like French community that you see online. Everybody like is starving for attention and fighting to be relevant. And I think that particular thing that I just said is extremely relevant when it comes to all the BIP 110 retard maxing that is happening. We see the infighting. It's not a bear market thing. It's an internet thing. There's no Bitcoin community anymore. There's nothing that you can point at and say, this is a Bitcoiner. It's over. We had a good run where we somehow had some cohesion and we felt part of a community. This is all broken and messed up, and we're not going to go back. We're going to see weird adoption in the future, where some people will look at Bitcoin and find value from a very specific door. Maybe it is NGU, or maybe it is cryptography or whatever. But then you have a bunch of other groups that will understand Bitcoin as well, and they will choose to adopt it. There's going to be completely different set of beliefs, and they are going to collide. And this BIP 110, retarded discussion that we're going through right now is one example that is very, very recent. But I think this is just the beginning. This is how adoption is going to happen in the future. Just fragmented, fractured, and chaotic. So that's where we are. That's my hot take that we can start with.
Yeah, dude. I'm not looking at the chat, but I'm sure they're crashing out. But before I get into, because I do want to talk about the messaging, because how Bitcoiners need to message better. That's one of the threads and themes that I've seen you kind of hit on lately. Could you explain a little more for the audience that isn't really following your work as closely as I am, this idea of the fragmentation on the internet, not just in Bitcoin, but in general? And like, what does that mean? And really, like, what are you seeing that I think a lot of people are missing? Look,
nobody's equal. So there's no one message that is going to drive adoption like crazy. You have to think about this. You have to be realistic and get out of your Bitcoin bubble once in a while and take a look at the rest of the world and realize that a third of the population globally are literate. Okay. How many of the ones that are literate are financially literate? I mean, you start breaking down these stats and you start to understand that Bitcoin is not for everyone. There's a few that will get it. And that's the few meme that we have seen in the Bitcoin community is true and will remain true, because not everyone is going to get it. So if we care about adoption, if we care about orange pilling, if we care about educating and providing the necessary info so people who need Bitcoin understand Bitcoin, we got to meet them at where they're at. Okay. And look, digital gold, Austrian economics, these are concepts that is not going to be understood by these people that I'm talking about, right? People, normies, whether they are from the third world or not, all they care about and all they can register is that things are becoming more expensive, but they have absolutely no clue why, right? So if you come to them with the Bitcoin message and yo, read the white paper, bro, you're not gonna, there's so many people flaming out on Twitter, on X, saying I'm tired with orange pilling people, normies will never get it. Well, I don't blame the normies, I blame Bitcoiners who just insist on being insufferable and just talk about shit that the normies don't relate to. So we gotta step up a little bit and meet people where they're at and be a little bit more simpler in the messaging if we really care about this thing growing.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd agree 100%. But before we expand on that, I was thinking while you're talking the idea of fragmentation. Do you believe in the dead internet theory? Do you think it's just we're just talking to a bunch of bots on the internet? Do you is that what you think? Is that kind of the precursor to this conversation?
Yeah, I think that's the whole reason why I built Perception to begin with, because I used to be VP of marketing and communications at Blockstream for 4+ years. Probably the Bitcoiners in the chat are going to start flaming out when I say that. But in these years, right? I started in early 2021 until 2025, right? Which I think now looking back was kind of the period where the institutions came into Bitcoin. Started to see a lot of different messages and kind of positioning, and a lot of different companies pop up, right? That were trying to sell Bitcoin and convince people about Bitcoin in very different ways. And in my job, trying to understand, okay, how do we change the mind of people about Blockstream, about the Liquid network and stuff like that? I was looking at tools, so-called media monitoring tools that could tell me a little bit about what are people talking about. And to give you an example, on a random, Tuesday, I would log into these tools and I would see, oh shit, Blockstream got 17% increase in mentions. Let me see what these mentions are all about. And then it was just this garbage, straight up bots and AI slop and horrible stuff, right? So I was like, this is not good. There's still some real voices. There's still some real signal out there, but it's very hard to manually or using old school ways of filtering through that. So I was like, okay, I need to build something of my own. So I built what eventually became Perception Today, started as a newsletter. Where I was just making charts and talking about what I was seeing, and people were like, okay, this is data that I'm willing to pay for. So that's the whole genesis of that. And that is in part due to the dead internet theory, but I think the dead internet theory needs an update in the theory, because now with the slopification of the web, it's going to be increasingly hard to just really catch the signal. But then also, I think a lot of people are not going to read information anymore like they used to. They're just going to talk to their agents or talk to their AI tools, and those tools are going to go out and scour for the real signal. So that kind of wall between a real human and what's out there on the internet is all going to happen inside these AI tools. So that's kind of I had to pivot a little bit when I launched Perception 8 months ago to cater to those tools, so that people who are behind them and are looking for signal, they can get it directly through my database and through my platform.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And also, while you were going, I'm like, dude, we're living idiocracy. No, yes. It's happening. It's a documentary. Yes. Shit. Yeah. And also the other thought was hey, the guy you're arguing with on Twitter, we used to say he'll be there. I used to be look, no need to argue. The guy you're arguing will still be mad when you come back on Twitter. Now it's you're probably arguing with an AI bot. It's probably not a real human that you're arguing with. So we got to keep that in mind.
I can give you an example from my real life. There was a very heated political thing that was happening in the world. And we're talking to a friend of mine, old friend of mine. And we were on opposite sides of this political debate. And it's a heated political debate, right? Global politics. And when I knew that I was fucking owning him, okay, in the chat. And all of a sudden he started to change, and it became like ChatGPT-ish, what he was. And we were in a DM, right?
Okay.
And he just like took what I said, gave it to ChatGPT and said something stupid like, give me a counter, that sounds smart. And then he took that and pasted it in our DM, dude, on Signal. I was like, that is it. And this guy is not a Bitcoiner. So I was like, this is the world. This is normies using AI for these type of purposes. And it's going to be even worse than what it's looking now, man. Like if you see this and you are somewhat AI pilled and you have your Claude set up and you're building stuff, dude, you're the 0.0005% of the world. Like the rest of the world are just using ChatGPT as a replacement for Google search, and it's just going to get worse and worse, man.
Yeah, I mean, I always joke, I'm not the biggest AI guy, but I'm like, I use it as a glorified search function. I never use it to argue argue against my friends. I think that's like the next level of normification. But like, I'm not really that biggest on AI, but I am a huge fan of what you're building. So I do want to pull up the website, guys. If you are interested in this, and I want to use a real world example that you recently talked about here. So perception.to, guys. Fernando, one of the things that I saw that you were recently talking about is how you were using Bitcoin perception, and you were tracking how many times Saylor said Bitcoin to now how many times he hasn't said Bitcoin. And I was going to bring that up on the show and play like one of the clips of one of your recent podcasts. I forget which one it was, but I was like, no, Fernando's going to be on in like a week. So I haven't explained this idea yet. I've been kind of teasing it. So will you give the audience what you found during this process, this research, using the tool that you built?
Yeah, so a lot of these like tools where that gives you sentiment or whatever, they just give you the sentiment after the fact, right? So it doesn't really track stuff in the moment, and it can't really extrapolate enough to give you like a really zoomed out view of like a person or a company or an entity speaking about whatever, right? So using perception data, I was able to just look at Saylor's tweets, because we have a corpus of like millions of rows that includes tweets from hundreds and hundreds of people, Saylor included. And, very early on this year, I have my agents kind of like go through the perception MCP and just give me like interesting observations that they do. And I don't know, what is it, a month ago or so, when Stretch depegged or whatever, I was like looking at the reactions of people to the depegging, and it was not really about Stretch depegging, it was just more about Saylor, and they found like Stretch as an excuse, as an outlet to like fuel more hate towards Saylor. And so I was like curious to see if I really went back to, from the point where Saylor started buying Bitcoin and started talking about it publicly till the depegging of Stretch happened, and whether there was any like interesting observations in terms of like narrative shifts, tone changes, or some sentiment or a way that he was speaking about something in a very specific way that was interesting. And TLDR, I mean, you can go to perception.to and go to research and find the report there. But the interesting thing is like from 2020 to 2024 was the phase where he was just pandering to Bitcoiners, saying all the right things, and most interestingly, talking about credit in a negative way. It was whenever credit was mentioned, it was in the derogatory way, it was in a negative way. Leaning on the anti-fiat rhetoric that a lot of Bitcoiners like, right? So he knew what he was doing, and he built up a presence in those 4 years of obviously aggressively buying Bitcoin, but also aggressively talking the talk, and he knew what he had to say, because obviously the entire Bitcoin industry ate it up, right? Now, 2024, end of 2024, 2025 is where things started to shift. And it started introducing newer words. He started talking about credit in a better way, and he was talking about Bitcoin, mentioning Bitcoin less. So there was a real shift in his narrative where he switched it up a little bit in terms of what he was doing the 4 years prior, and then that shift happened right before Stretch got introduced for the first time in 2025. So obviously, I don't know the guy, I don't know the team, but if you look at the data, it was pretty obvious that he started his shift in the narrative as a precursor for launching products that had to do with credit and stuff like that. So that's what I highlighted in the report. There's some really cool visuals and some really interesting charts that you can check out there. But that is, to me, extremely interesting. And I think the last thing that is also interesting to point out is, along with this shift in narrative, also something interesting happened, which was the shift in the sentiment from the Bitcoiners. So as Saylor started to shift, the industry, or like the Bitcoin community, started to shift as well. So there was more negative sentiment happening towards Saylor when he started to shift. So this was something that people were feeling, but it wasn't really something that was really said a lot until the DPEG happened, and then the dam flooded over with like negative sentiment, and everybody's like, riding the bandwagon on the Saylor hate. So I think it's interesting to see these things, because you can say that, okay, narratives doesn't move market, but I think narratives definitely do move markets, and it's a factor that a lot of more people should be familiar with.
Yeah, 100%. I've been kind of doubling down on this idea of one, of course, I think I'm agreeing with you. I think our mutual friend Nolan said it best. Like, Bitcoin's a psychological commodity. Like, narratives drive this thing. Like, whether you like it or not, that's just kind of how this works. And I'm constantly kind of beating that same message on this show. And then further adding, it's like, guys, we need a certain amount of like media literacy here, and understanding why certain stories are dropped, what they want you to think, and not so much like, oh, hey, this happened, look, it's in the Wall Street Journal, it must be true. It's like, no, like, why are we hearing about this now? And it's interesting what you're doing with Bitcoin Perception, because you can kind of track the conversations, where they're coming from, what's being said, the sentiment about it. And it literally helps you with media literacy. And as we all know, there's so much information in the world right now. I was actually thinking about this before the show. It's like, there's so much information right now. I was texting with a friend. They were talking about some like, world political stuff. And I was just like, they literally said, like, it's so confusing. Like, why can't this just be this simple? And you're like, that's the point. Like, that is literally the point. You're inundated with so much information that you have to have, again, reusing the word too much, like media literacy, a certain perception and understanding of what is happening to frame all of the stuff that you're seeing every single day. And we're all flooded with so much information. And I think that's what you're like, essentially what you're doing with perception. It's a good way of filtering, as you said, using your AI to filter the information so you can kind of categorize it better in your mind, or else it's just a flood of information. And that's kind of what we're seeing happen right now.
I mean, if you want to like make it, if you want to escape the permanent underclass, you need to really find an edge. Okay, you got to be an interesting person. You got to be an interesting entity. If you're a company, if you're a brand, you need to be interesting. You need to have an edge. You need to be different. And essentially, what all these AI tools that are being used is just homogenizing the entire internet, man. Like, it's really, really dire. Everybody's sounding the same. Everybody think because people without AI, they suck at writing or communicating, right? That's the default. They suck. So when they use AI, obviously that is better than their baseline, but it's still, now everybody is at that level, right? So yes, a lot of people who couldn't hire a marketer before, for example, now can pay $200 a month, and they have like an agent doing the marketing for them. But then they do fucking emojis for every bullet points. They have the M dashes. They have, it's not X, but it's Y. You have all these like fingerprints, right? That this is like terrible AI slop. So I think companies who want to survive, if you want to build your personal brand and you want to survive, you need to stand out. So you can't really be part of that homogenization of the internet. You can use AI's like reasoning tools to go through a lot of data. And that's kind of like the whole competitive mode of perception, right? Like the whole spiel is, for people who want to do what I like to call narrative engineering, you hook up Claude or ChatGPT or Codex or whatever to the perception MCP, And through that, you know the narrative gaps. And with everything that the AI knows about you, if you like add your markdown files about your brand, your DNA, your tone of voice, what you believe in, or what makes you special, then the combination of these things with the reasoning of AI will actually make you sound interesting, because you need to find those gaps in order to leverage opportunities, right? Like if you are a miner and there's a story happening, but you have a really unique angle, you need to do a lot of research in order to understand, okay, how can I attack this from a narrative perspective, right? And you can't do that the old school way. So that's why perception is so important for people who do narrative engineering. And that's it. That's the way. If you don't do that, then you're going to just sound like everybody else. And I think that is not cool. That is not good for the industry. It's not good for the world. It's not good for the readers of that content that you're putting out. I mean, if you want to like really make the internet better, we need to just provide unique stories, unique angles, and edge. And I'm afraid so many people are just lazy, and they just default to the lazy version, which is the slopification.
Yeah. I mean, I think I fall into the lazy camp on my Twitter. I just shit post. I'm just like, dude, I think this is funny. Let me just post it right now. You know, I'm sitting there like on the couch. Man, this is such a funny tweet. Let me post it. You know, before like last week, it got to like 3 people. Now it's like, okay, people are finally seeing. Maybe I'm funnier than I thought I was. But anyways, I do want to kind of add, or maybe I want you to add on this. Like you said, basically, you know, full stop, you know, people suck at communicating. So I do want to maybe get your view, pick your brain a little bit here. Like, how can Bitcoiners improve the messaging here? Because like I've been saying that for a while. It's like, look, let's be honest, the Bitcoin marketing sucks, guys. Like, we need to get better. This whole like end the Fed 1913, like, hey, cool story. I love it. I'm a huge fan. That's what got me into Bitcoin. But if we're being honest, that's not what's going to get the next billion people into Bitcoin. So with that in mind, how are you viewing this? Like, what can we do better?
Man, I share a lot of the same opinions as your newly appointed president.
Yeah, me too.
On that thing. So he probably, I don't know if he's been on this show talking about this specific thing, then your listeners are going to, you know, hear the same message. But it's like, you got to meet people where they are, man. You know, me personally, I'm from Argentina, went through hyperinflation several times, currency debasement. You know, my family emigrated because of hyperinflation. I've seen it. Okay. And, you know, you would think that everybody in Argentina would automatically love Bitcoin just because of that. But that's not the fact, right? There's other things that is closer to an individual. And that is just like, what do they want to do in life? Do they have a specific goal? Is there anything that they want to do? And then, you know, in terms of like the intellectual aspect of Bitcoin, you know, again, I'm from Argentina. I knew the hyperinflationary stuff. That led me to study how money works. That led me to study how inflation works. That led me to study hard money, Austrian economics from a very, you know, very normie standpoint, but I got the basics. Then when Bitcoin came and got introduced to me via a friend, those past experiences and the education that I've given myself, because obviously you don't learn this in public schools, that was a combination and the right timing for me to understand Bitcoin from that perspective. Right now, if I were to then try to orange pill 100, 500 people using the exact same arguments that convinced me, that's not going to, maybe 3, 4, 5 people who have gone through some of the same things that I do and ended up thinking the same way that I do will understand it. But the remaining 95% is just going to not understand anything. And that's the problem. The same arguments that convinced you back then is not going to convince the next guy. So you need to be more empathetic and you need to understand, hey, what do you want to do? And then you got to be, you know, if you're smart enough, if you know enough about Bitcoin, you'll understand that there's always an angle where Bitcoin fits. Like if you're a far right extremist, if you're a far left extremist, there's a case for Bitcoin in both, and then everything in between. So you got to like step up your, you know, influence game and meet people where they are and try to like ask them who they are, what they believe in, and then do the Bitcoin version that fits that box. If not, you're just going to be extremely disappointed, and you're just going to rage quit orange pilling altogether, which is kind of like what most Bitcoiners have done at this point.
Yeah, it's simple. Napoleon Hill wrote a book about it a long time ago, and it's literally boiled down to just like bait the hook for the fish you're trying to catch, guys. It's like we're all saying the same thing. But anyway, getting back to Bitcoin perception a little more, what other cool things have you found? Like what else have you dove into? What's like a cool insight that you've used your product that you think the audience might find interesting?
Man, I have many customers at this point that give me their like what they've built with perception, and I get amazed every time. I just like so many use cases that I didn't even know of. So it's hard, but I think for companies out there who have few resources but understand the importance of carving a brand and kind of like plant your flag in the sand and be different. Perception will help you just finding out whatever people are talking about at any given time, give you a trend cluster, give you what the sentiment is, and give you what the overall discussion is about. And then when you feed perception with your own company information, and this could be anything from like, I don't know, you sit down with your CEO and you do an interview and you get all his beliefs, all the things that he believes in, the reason why he started the company, whatever, you feed that into perception as well. And then the combination of the whatever is happening right now across the entire Bitcoin industry, plus the things that make you special. And if you need to create, a newsletter that you want to grow, or you want to create, banger tweets in order to grow your social audience, whatever, that is great for that. But if you are in a more, investor relation type of role for like more corporate, more public companies, there's a bunch of report and research about the market that you can find based on how people are talking about it. Like perception tracks thousands of sources. If a central bank in Italy is talking about Bitcoin, you will see it in perception. If an SEC filing happened and there's an insider trading happening at a public mining company, you'll see exactly who sold what at what time, and everything in between. Like you have literally the intelligence of the entire market at your fingertips that you can just ask Claude or Codex about. So again, use cases are plenty. I have people doing board investor meetings, reports, newsletter content, brand positioning, everything that has to do with narratives, communications, marketing, content, all of that good stuff. So go to perception.to. There's a use cases section there that can break down the most important ones. There's also a customers section, so you can see how BitGo, Swan, Relay, Bitcoin Well, and many others are using perception for many different things. So yeah, go check it out there instead of listening to me rant.
All right, I think the question the audience wants, I'm going to be trolling a little bit, is will this help them make more money? Will this help them be a better Bitcoin trader? we tell them not to trade. I'm joking. We tell them not to trade, but
don't do that shit. But if you believe in sentiment, if you believe sentiment has anything to do with where price is going, hey man, I had a quant actually go through my entire corpus because I got something called the perception index, which is kind of like a fear and greed index, but it's more about just sentiment and mentions and discussions, not tethered to the price action like the fear and greed is. And dude, when perception index says something today, fear and greed is going to say that in 3-4 days from now. And I did a back test from 2018 till today with a certified quant that is a CFA, and sentiment is 3 or 4 days before the fear and greed. So you believe the fear and greed is an indicator of anything, and you want to trade with that, I think you should better check out perception index if you want to be a little bit on the lagging, on the leading side of things instead of the lagging side.
That's actually pretty interesting. That's wow.
Go check it out.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay. Before I do last words, I do want to ask, as someone that is also, I would say, I'm going to say myself somewhat media literate, but someone that is also in the media game. Where do you think we currently are right now? Like, what is the general vibe you're feeling right now? You know, I was having a conversation with Brian Harrington yesterday, and he was on like, dude, I don't see where the doom and gloom's coming from. Like, we're winning right now. Like, why is everyone so mad? Obviously, we're in a bear market. Yeah, it's 47% off all-time high, et cetera, but from your view here, someone that is parsing the information, trying to, get good narratives out there, like what are you feeling right now, and what is like your perception of where we currently are? No pun intended on that one, actually, but like what's your general view right now, so the audience can be like, okay, I get where he's coming from right now. Like what are you seeing, and where do you think we go from here, maybe towards the end of the year?
Mark this. We are at the bottom of the bear. That's it. It's only up from here. Go. Fucking go. We're gonna blow up. No, but really though, really. I don't. If you're bearish, if you're negative, dude, you're just a negative person, man. Like not being able to see through all the good stuff that is happening. There's a lot of new products being built. Like every week, there's somebody announcing some awesome stuff. Builders are building, and obviously that's a bear market stereotype, but dude, like we got the data. There's so many people tweeting, announcing, posting stuff, so many interesting things being built that is going to really rip when the rest of the normies come on board again. The only thing is like, if you think we have gone through a lot of shit and we were dragging feet through the mud and we're still at 65,000, dude, like if price, I believe price might be the only monoculture that we have left. Okay. If everything else is scattered and fragmented, look at the price. And yeah, there's part of it that is manipulation, of course. But if there's anything to leech onto in terms of like one signal that can tell us where things are going, dude, the price is the monoculture. And you should feel real bullish about the fact that we are at 65K after everything that has happened. Dude, like just this week, treasury companies fucking falling together, so many controversies, the BIP 110ers, retard maxing. Like you would think like everything is crashing, but dude, we're at 65K. It's up only.
Let's go. I love it. Okay. Let's plug Perception one more time. So I'll give you the floor here. Perception.to. How does this work? If someone is interested in using this for their company or maybe themselves as an individual, how does this process work? How much does it cost? All that stuff.
Okay, so I have a $249 a month for 20 requests a day. You can go to the pricing there, and it's pretty easy to see. $249, you get full access to the entire database, unlimited searches, unlimited entity tracking. All these other tools they charge you per keyword. I don't mess with that. You get $249 and it's straight up unlimited. And you can connect it to the API and the MCP, and you get 20 requests a day to let your agents do, for example, 20 rounds of just research for you. If you want to really go up, the $499 gives you 100 requests plus way more MCP tools. Like you can go really granular. You can only look at white paper PDFs from central banks if you want to, or you want to see transcripts from conference panels and keynote speeches. Go to the $499 and you have full access to that as well. And if you don't really want to pay me, you know what? It's fine. You can get 5 requests a day for free forever. Just plug it into your MCP. It's super easy. It's literally one line of code. You plug it in, you create a user, and you get 5 requests a day. And you can just ask Claude or ChatGPT anything, and you will get real-time data. If you ask Claude or ChatGPT anything, it's going to give you stale data. They don't know what is happening right fucking now. You will if you plug the MCP to your AI tools. And hey, if you never want to pay me a dime, you get 5 for free. So go check it out.
Let's go. All right. So now they can't yell at you and be like, he's just trying to show a product. Being like, no, you can do it for free, bro.
Just for the culture.
For the culture. There we go. Fernando, man, yesterday's show and today's show have been almost like a build up for each other. They're kind of playing in the same lane of like, look, guys, we got to update how we do what we're doing because of all the tools, because of where we are, because Bitcoin has matured. And so I really hope that the audience takes this and digest it. Obviously, at first, we all have our, our religious principles here, our Bitcoin cult amendments that it feels sacrilegious to kind of go against. But that's why I'm really been a fan of your Twitter lately. Maybe you're using Bitcoin Perception to get these banger tweets out. And I'm like, dude, Fernando's just like so on point. I turned on your notification, so it's part of like my news process and my thinking for the show. So like there's stuff you post and I'm like, man, like I agree, but I'm also like, man, F Fernando, like you're really like you're attacking me right now. But like I think it's you're providing a lot of value on your personal account and the appearances that you're making, and obviously with Perception. So a huge just like kudos to you. I really love what you're doing right now, and I think it's very valuable that we got to update what we're doing. Obviously, what we've done has worked up to this point, but if we are really serious about driving Bitcoin forward, we can't just keep resting on our laurels and repeating the same memes. Like the memes have been stale, the messaging's been stale, and you built some tools here that can help us all get better. So, I'm super excited and glad to see what you're doing. And I hope that this makes us all better. And then on this note, Fernando, I do want to give you the last moment. Is there anything else you want to say? One final message to the audience. It could be about perception. It could be about Bitcoin. It could be about media, whatever you want to say. Final message to the audience. The floor is yours.
Bitcoin is in great shape. So for all the Bitcoiners out there, you don't need to put on, face paint and think that you're going to war or that Bitcoin is captured or endangered. Dude, Bitcoin is many things for many different people at this point. It's not for you. Bitcoin is not about you. And you got to understand that there's an economy being built on top of Bitcoin. Many layers, many different spaces when it comes to utilizing the blockchain. And hey, you're not going to like it, but that's the beautiful part about Bitcoin. It is for your enemies. It is neutral. If a transaction goes through, keeping those transactions valid is actually pretty important in order for us to maintain the stance that Bitcoin is money. If all of a sudden people that are paying for transactions don't see those transactions go through or whatever, that's when we become Ethereum. You know how much money is being wasted on Ethereum on transactions that doesn't go for people who want to pay for stuff. So all this filtering, all this changing, of policies, do whatever you want with your node, of course, but consensus is consensus. Bitcoin is great. Bitcoin is growing, and you don't want to be part of the group that stunts that growth. So that's it. I love you guys still. You're Bitcoiners to me, but I think the way that you're trying to convince people are pretty retarded. So that's it.
I might have to you go back and edit a few of those. But Fernando, man, I always enjoy talking to you. I'm a huge fan of your Twitter. Guys, go follow his Twitter, Base Layer. He's doing great work, man. So I'm following along on the ride. I love your Twitter account. It makes me think, and we didn't even get into the Napster story. You've said that in the past, but there is that's why I like your unique perspective. I also kind of came from a music perspective before. That's why I'm like the audio engineer over here, and so that always was like, man, I get it. Like we're going through it. And again, I think I was saying it yesterday. I don't know if it was you, the first one to say it, but like we are in the Bitcoin hipster movement right now where like, it was underground and now we're going mainstream and it's like, it's over. They sold out. I don't like this band anymore. So yeah, anyways, Fernando, I truly appreciate you coming on today. This one was for me. I have fun with you, man. So thank you so much. Keep up the good work. And I'm excited to see how Bitcoin perception grows. So keep up the good work, man.
Thanks so much, man. And great job what you're doing as well. You're building a true media empire the right way with the right people. More power to you, man. And hopefully we'll catch up soon.
Thank you, man. All right, guys. All right. You already know the deal. Let's wrap up today's show. So, hey, look, hold your tomatoes. We've been having a little fun here. But there's a lot of signal, at least in my view here, of what we heard from Brian yesterday and from Fernando today. So it might be one of those things, it might go down a little rough, the digestion might hurt a little bit, but I'm sure you're going to come back in a couple of months, maybe a year or so, depending on who you are, and you'll be like, all right, they were right. I'm not saying we're right about everything. I'm just saying, hey, we got to up our game here is all I'm saying. All right. So anyways, on that note, you already know the deal. We go live Monday through Friday, 12:40 p.m. live. I know I post at 12:16. Just come at 12:40 or maybe 12:30. So I know I have a good show, so I know I don't need to change some stuff here so that we get some views. Sorry, view maxing. But I love you guys. I appreciate every single person that has ever watched a Simply Bitcoin show, even if it was 10 seconds. You already know the deal. Rest of the day, we're ascending, guys. Make sure. No, I'm not. I was going to say what Brian said yesterday. Take the peptides. No, don't. I don't endorse the peptides. Eat good. Get your exercise in. Get some sun on your face. Get your rest. I haven't been saying the rest, guys. Hey, I'm a boomer now. I need to sleep, okay? What's the other one? Oh, yeah. Call your mother or your brother or your sister. Call your loved ones. Call your wife. I don't know. But of course, make sure you're still stacking some Bitcoin. Make sure you're taking it into self-custody. This is how we win. All right, guys. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Until then, peace out.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.